Okay, which one do you have?
I named it CIA because that was a job I was planning on going into.
Okay, who would you like to popcorn?
I'll go Oliver.
My title for that thing that you do is future career path. And then that thing, if number one was gone, is investing. And for money and image are no object, is exploring.
Okay, very concise. I like the way you're going with that. I'll look forward to seeing them. Who do you pick?
Abby.
So I said for the thing that I do, it was lawyer. If number one wasn't there, it would be designing. And then if money and image were no object, I put sailing.
Sailing, you said, like with boats?
Yeah, my family's like big in that. So
Well, given where you're from, one of the two capitals of the world, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, who do you pick, Abby?
I'll pick Isabella.
So I have what I want to do is a lawyer, and then I have nursing, and then designing, like interior design.
Ah, interesting. A new contestant. I like it. I like it. It is much different. Who do you pick?
I'll pick on Nick.
So for the things that you
Nick,
do,
would you turn on your camera?
yeah, I
I'm
can.
sorry, I'm sorry I keep asking that, but it's important that we do that so that we can build community. So please turn on the cameras.
So for the thing that you do, I picked. My title was nursing in Boston, which is, I think, like everyone knows. And
Well, you're more definitive about the Boston piece now, so I like that. Go.
Yeah. And then if it wasn't the thing that, like, if number one wasn't there, I said maybe like biology, just like focus more in on the biology aspect, maybe like become a biologist or something like that. And
Okay.
then if money and image were no object, I said painting. I'm pretty into painting, so I feel like I would be a pretty
Houses or
good painter.
pictures?
What was that?
Houses or pictures?
Pictures.
Okay.
Definitely just painting pictures. Not. I feel like I'd be pretty bad at painting a house.
Well, you don't know until you've tried it. Okay, who do you pick?
I'll pick Carson.
Okay, so the thing that I would do would be engineering. If that was gone, then I would probably do something with business, but I'm not really sure. So it was very broad. And then if money or image was not an object, then I would do like videography, like drone videography and stuff like that, and like pictures and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And I'll popcorn Sydney.
For things that you do, I have crime scene reconstructionist. If thing one was gone, then I have veterinarian. And if money and image were no object, then I would probably do photography.
You know, it's funny, Sydney, when I was watching your video the other day, I got the feeling that you were in a dark room, right? Not a dark room. I mean, you were in a dark room, but I mean, it kind of had just the glow. It was, I don't know if you had a red light in there or what, but it looked like you were in a photography dark room. I was just thinking that when you came up. Okay, who do you pick?
I pick on Addie.
So for the thing that I want to do, I did an FBI agent, and then if number one wasn't an option, I did my own business involving art, and then if money wasn't a thing, I still said art.
Okay, so Addie, one of the things that the question I was going to ask you after you gave your second one is that I'd like to be in a business that involves art. So I think the easy thing there would be to say, okay, you're going to sell stuff that you create, right? I mean, that's the easy thing to do. But since you have two that are the same, and I'll ask you this question as I'm saying this, is number two selling your stuff, or is number two being involved in the business, like maybe you own a studio, or maybe you're promoting other people's stuff? Is there another job in art that you're interested in?
Well, so I would say for number two it's more of like a mixture between entrepreneurship and art, but it doesn't necessarily mean selling like my artwork. It could also mean like putting my artwork on something and selling that. Like if I was to make, like, for example, like
Coffee mugs.
like, yeah, or like Etsy, you can make stickers and then you could sell those, and I could have like,
Gotcha.
stuff like that. So
And what's the distinction between that and number 3?
number 3 would probably just be selling my actual art.
Okay. Okay, we'll tease that apart a little bit later in class today. Thanks for that. Who do you pick? We've got a few people left.
Caroline.
For the thing that you do, I said marketing, and then the thing that if number 1 was gone, I said a lawyer, and then if money and image are no object, I said traveling.
We all want to get paid to travel, don't we? That'd be outstanding. Who do you pick, Caroline?
Did Evan go?
No.
No. For what I currently do, engineering, for if there's no number 1, I'd probably do international business or global studies. And if money and image were no object, I'd probably be a photographer.
Okay.
And I'll pass it to Ale.
For number 1, lawyer, then for 2, accountant, and then 3, either photographer or a coach.
What would you coach?
Oh, excuse me?
What would you coach?
Oh, soccer.
Okay. So let me say you had law, accounting, and soccer.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can roll all of those together. Who's left? Aaron, maybe?
Aaron.
Okay. So the first one would be a teacher. The second one would have been a designer, sole designer, and the third one, if no money or image, it would be a dancer.
A dancer?
Yes.
What kind of dancer would you be?
Mostly all of them, really. I learned different dances throughout my childhood.
Okay. All right. I like it. It's different. And by the way, I think a running theme through that, I don't know that anybody gave an option where either I wasn't surprised by how you twisted something I'd heard before, or how when you added the third one, it was different. And I think that's going to fit in really well to the conversation that we're going to have a little bit later today. So cheers to that. And when I say surprised, I guess in that, not that, oh, I didn't think that you would pick that, in that it was new, I guess is what I'm saying, is that it was a new addition. So I do appreciate that. So I want to touch a little bit now on this whole concept of feedback that I started to jump into last week. And, you know, feedback is very important to me, and it's a very important component of the course, right? And it is reflected as such. This is one of the behavioral outcomes for students participating in BA 210, to provide and receive constructive verbal and written feedback in one-on-one, large and small group settings. And I think you can see that we do that every day, right? Sometimes we do it even on days when we're not in class, like you had to do over the weekend. So it's an important part of the course. Who else is feedback important to? Who else has it been important to in the class? Well, let me make this as easy as possible. There's me, and then who else is there?
Us.
Classmates.
Yes, that is the alternative to me. We're a very flat hierarchy here, but yes, the alternative to the professor is the students. And do you know how I know that? Because when I left it to you to be able to determine what it was you thought was important, you talked about feedback, right? It is a key part of our classroom community. In fact, If I were to go through and I were to identify a theme that goes through what the class has identified as being important in a classroom community that promotes success, solidarity, teamwork, and confidence, it's feedback, right? You're going to learn from mistakes, which you get feedback on. You're going to accept diverse points of view with an open mind, which means you're accepting the feedback. You're going to contribute to a constructive exchange, which means you are agreeing that it's important for you to provide feedback. And not only that, to provide it, you have to create opportunities for each person to share and grow and to give and receive it. But even above all of that, number 3, provide empathetic and meaningful feedback, right? So I'm quite sure that this is important to you because you mention it in every single group that came out and did this. Feedback, receiving feedback, putting a situation together where you could get the feedback and provide, it was there, right? And the other thing that I can assure you, and this is my old guy statement of the day, is that you will not find a more important skill to give and receive and to be part of when you leave here, this class and this institution, than being able to get and give really good feedback. Okay, so understand how important it is. So some of the feedback that I have for you is on the feedback that you provided over the weekend, right? So the challenge, choices, and outcomes, and it may be because of the way that I framed the question, it may be because of all the work that we've done, but I do have to give you all credit. You were very concise and clear about your challenges, the choices, and the outcomes that you had. They were very definitive statements. If you were to go back and ask me after the 50 to 60 second pieces that you had, I would be able to answer almost all of those things. And in fact, I even provided some other questions that dawned on me as I was watching them in the feedback that I give you every week on these things. But the one part that could have been better in a lot of places was the feedback, right? So we know that you have a responsibility of feedback in the creative process. And now it's not just because you've stated it's important, it's because we have studied it and practiced it, right? And so Chisholm isn't the be all and end all, but it is probably the best example I've used of the importance to be able to give and receive feedback and to break it down so it's very easy. And we have these 6 things that we have agreed upon that are very important as you're providing feedback. Leading with positives, providing detail, identifying the values, and describing the work in your own words. Quite honestly, if you're listening or reading, those are all really easy. Really easy. From the standpoint is you don't need a lot of courage to repeat what somebody says or to understand what they says. You just have to pay attention. And if you reiterate what somebody says, whether it be your professor or a classmate or somebody that you're working with, there is no real challenge or courage involved in doing that. You're not going to upset anybody, right? You don't really have to give it a lot of thought. So it is somewhat simple. But it also does not make a significant contribution to the creativity of the endeavor to which you're contributing to, right? It's very much like saying good job, right? People might feel good about it, but it doesn't tell them a whole lot. The real challenge and what you have been trained and practiced and have demonstrated that you can do is when you get the great question, which is what is your opinion, to be able to ask questions, right? Or end with suggested points of revision and clarification. Those of you that did that in your feedback, and sometimes you don't have to give it in every one, right? Sometimes you provided a number of examples or points of clarification with one person you provided feedback to, and maybe you were just kind of rooting for the person in the second one or encouragement. That's also okay, right? Understanding, empathy, encouragement going forward, advice, all those things are great, right? But if you were to do this and you see a pattern, and I was to take both of the pieces of feedback that you provided in this activity, in fact, go back and do them all, and they look something like, hey, I can relate or understand to what you just said. That's not altogether bad. That's pretty positive and leading. That's okay, right? I've also experienced or felt or done the same things that you just said. It's also quite positive. And you may even be demonstrating that you heard what they say, and there's some value to that. And then if you go, it will be helpful, useful, good to plan to do exactly what you just said is not helpful, right? It's nice, but if you end right there, you have basically said that you read what they said, you repeated what you read that they said, you've suggested that they're going to do the same things that they said. My joke, I'm signaling here. My joke is that's very often what I see when I ask open-ended questions to students and they don't know the answers, is that they'll repeat the question and repeat what I say in the question is the answer to the question, right? So that part is nice. You're building up a rapport, and those things that we've known are all important. But the question that I would ask you is, if that's where the feedback ends, what is the level of thought, insight, diversity, or growth that is involved with that? That can be in a rhetorical question unless somebody wants to answer it. What value does that provide to the creative process? Are you providing insights, or are you prompting somebody to think or to grow or to be challenged? Are you providing a controversial or antagonistic or opposite idea for them to consider? The question is how valuable is that feedback, right? The other question, and I know this is an issue and I do not want to diminish it, it's very safe. You don't need a lot of courage, right? One of the things that you need in setting up this environment and this acknowledged consensus on what's important to us is that you have signaled that this is an environment where it's okay to provide feedback or to ask questions or to challenge your peers. That is so hard to do. But I will tell you that if you are working on a project and there's a lot of money involved or things are really important to somebody, it doesn't get easier when the people aren't your peers and your friends, right? In fact, I can't think of anything that people will respect you for more than being able to do this. But you need to practice it here, right? So you can do something very similar to what I just outlined and then add a couple of things. So if you want to say, hey, I really understand, I had a similar activity, and you want to lead with that, and you want to build goodwill and be positive and let them know that you're with them and that you connect with them, that is an awesome way to start. But then you go in to your responsibilities as a reviewer. I really appreciate something about what they've asked you. What was the feedback they were asking you for? What was the assignment or the goal of what they've written or recorded? How does what they do accomplish those things? And then tell them how they did it. I really like how you identified your challenges, right? They were really hard to overcome, right? I could see where they were getting in the way of you being able to reach your life view, get your internship, pick a major, right? And then reiterating the, it looks and sounds like you value or you think something is important. It sounds like helping people is really important to you, so I can understand where you're struggling with trying to determine if accounting is going to be a way to do that, right? You've not been controversial there at all, but you're providing specific feedback about what they wrote that is going towards the question that they are trying to answer, right? And this is how I hear or understand it, right? Again, being honest here, and don't worry about if what you understand is not what they wanted to hear. That's really valuable feedback. It's not being critical, it's being honest, right? But then you got to jump into the next part. What's not clear? Hey, I'm wondering if, or have you considered, right? If you ask somebody a question, one of the things that you do is you make them think in a constructive way, right? And you're not assuming or judging, unless you do it really passive aggressively, right? But if you ask somebody a question rather than tell them, it's really hard to construe that as passing judgment. You're asking them to consider something, right? And then you make your suggested changes. So we've gone through all of that. And remember, we're backloading the hard things on purpose, right? Through this whole process. So they know that there's buy-in. If you were to do this again, or it might be easier for me to understand, or could you restate? You're not telling them to do it. You're suggesting it. You're providing ideas, insights, an alternative point of view. Okay? So to be very clear, that's what I expect with that good feedback is. That's what I expect to get when I ask for it. That's what I try to provide when I do it. And I think it's important for you to be able to do that, at least while you're here over the next 7 weeks, because it's important. Anybody have any questions on that? Is that different than what we've seen? Because you're going to be getting into some new stuff now, and it's going to start coming really fast, right? I can't provide all the feedback. That's one of the reasons we conduct the class this way, right? So you're going to have to rely on each other to be able to do that. And you've all got great ideas, and you've all got new good insights into how this is going on. If nothing else, because you're all reading the same stuff, you're all doing the same assignments. And you're all, quite honestly, living quite a bit of the same experience, whether you're at home or here on campus. One of the things I joke about with statistics, and I've mentioned a couple times, my background in research, I joke with statistics in that we try to set things up so everything is the same so that we can determine the differences between them. And so one of the goals in this assignment that we've been working on over the last week now with the Odyssey plans is to create 3 different plans, right? And we've talked about those plans, that thing you do if it was gone, in the life you'd live if money or image were no object. But what we're really looking here to do with the Odyssey plans are to create some diverse plans so that you can choose from them. And what you will find, and they allude to this in the book, but I'm going to say it more overtly, is that what you will probably find is that you will not pick just one isolated plan. You will probably tend to go towards one, and it very well might be that thing you do, but what you will probably find is that as you explore and consider other things, you may pull some of those into the way that you consider those things you do, right? And that's valuable. That's valuable. So let me ask a question, and this is not a rhetorical question. I would like people to jump around, and I would like you to report or tell me what you view as the concept of complementarity. What are some key concepts of complementarity? Nick, what is a key component of complementarity?
So complementary, you have to, if you rephrase the question a little, I'm kind of,
what are the
kind of hard to,
key concepts around the term complementarity?
So complementarity means that you have to aid in the feedback you're giving to a person. So, or no, sorry. Complementarity, that means that they're all supposed to all your plans are supposed to relate to each other in some way, complement each other. That's how I think of it, at least.
That's how most people think of it. That's how most people think of it, but it's not the way necessarily that it's proposed. So there is a complement to each other, but they don't necessarily go together with each other. What should they do if you have complementary ideas? Alex, what should you do if you have complementary ideas? What would be complementarity? What would be some key concepts of complementarity?
I guess if they're a little different.
A little bit different?
Yeah, I would say that they would have to be abstract from one another, but they still have to complement each other. They shouldn't.
So there's a difference there. What's that difference? What's that difference look like, Sydney?
Honestly, I'm not even sure.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty. Evan, what do the differences look like with the idea of complementarity?
I'm not 100% sure either. I mean, I kind of understood what they were saying, but I don't have much to add.
Okay, could somebody give me a complementarity, 2 terms? What if I were to change the term to polarity? What if I have 2 polar terms? Can somebody give me 2 polar terms, polarly related terms that we've talked about in this context? Anybody? Abby?
Would this be like gravity versus anchor problems? Like the way you for like polar?
They are polar.
Hmm.
I'm not sure I see where you're going with that example though.
Okay.
What are a couple of terms? Okay, let me ask you this. What are some of the nastiest things that we're fighting over right now as a society, as a world, as people? You know, I hate those generalizations, but what are some societal complementarity type issues or polar issues that we're fighting over? Give me a controversial issue. Just name one, somebody.
Politics, racism.
Okay, racism. Okay, so what are the 2 sides of racism, Isabella?
Wait, sorry, what did you ask?
Give me 2 sides of racism.
Like, what do you mean? Like,
Well, racism is controversial because people feel differently about it.
yeah.
So who are the 2, give me 2 sides of racism.
I guess we could just split it down like politics, like Democrats and Republicans.
Okay,
They often
Democrats
have
and
different
Republicans,
opinions on
we're
that.
doing racism. Who are the 2 sides of racism? Somebody jump in and help her.
I would say one side would be, oh, sorry, you can go ahead, Nick, you raised your hand.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I guess some people view it more of a problem than others. Like, some people don't see it as that big of a problem in society, and then others.
Who sees it as a really big problem?
Who sees it as a really big problem?
Yeah, who sees racism as a really big problem?
I would probably say more the younger generations in society.
Those that are being affected,
Yes,
and
who would that be, Isabella?
people of color.
Thank you. Who's on the other side of that?
Non-people of color.
People of not color, yes, alternatively, right? So you have a really big issue. You have 2 opposite polar sides. Give me another one. Give me another big issue. Caroline, give me another issue. I'm going to make you jump in here.
Like the issue of guns.
Thank you very much. It's always very quick. So what are the 2 sides of guns?
Some people think that we need more like laws against it, and other people are like more for the Second Amendment and don't want laws restricting guns.
So we have gun restriction and we have the real strong Second Amendment people, right? Gun control, no gun control. Good. Those are 2. Are those 2 people opposite? Do they hang out and like chill and have some coffee together all the time? No, they don't. Give me another one. Ollie, give me another one. Evan, give me another one.
Climate change.
Climate change. Thank you. Who are the 2 sides of climate change?
I guess those who believe in it and then those who don't.
The deniers. Yes. Right? It's very antagonistic, or you can say it's big business or big oil on the side of saving the planet, right? And restrictions and regulation, right? There's 2 different sides there. And so any meaningful issue that you have is going to have those 2 sides, right? And so what we need to do is to recognize that this is the way in the world that we live in. You're going to have more creativity with more ideas and more diverse ideas. there are conflicting forces, right? So by definition, the word conflicting means there's going to be a conflict there. The nice thing about doing this in this classroom is that we have acknowledged not only that ambiguity is there, the complementarity is important, but we are also in a situation where we can start to explore that in somewhat of a safe way. And when you do that in an intentional way, you almost give yourself permission to explore things that you may not explore otherwise. It could be, you may be a Second Amendment person, but you're going to see what more gun regulation looks like, right? As an academic exercise. It's not really what I think, but so you're giving yourself permission to do that, right? I'm really not going to get a job that pays me to travel around the world, but I'd like to consider it. And if I do, I may find a way to get a job as a lawyer where I'm able to travel. And that might be send me well on my way to a joyful, happy life. But you have to be able to acknowledge those two things, right? And so these terms that we look at, they don't just complement each other, they're polar, right? So maybe I'll change the term. How do we look at these polar issues like and hate, good and bad, right and wrong, right? Or some of these great big issues that we address. Because if we put all the Democrats in a room and have them come up with a solution, and they are not taking into account the views of the Republicans or people that claim to be Republicans or follow Republican policies, they may get a solution that nibbles around the edges, but they are not going to get a bigger solution that would incorporate and be good for the mass of people, right? That's why it's important to have all of these different voices. That's why it's important, as we have set this classroom up, that we embrace diversity, we embrace ambiguity, because it makes us think and it contributes to the conscience, to the creativity, to the creative process. So you have these three plans that we're going through in the Odyssey process, but what we really want to do is get as far away from that thing that you do as possible. So we would really like our three plans to be different. Again, you may consider your second or third plan. People have done that to pursue it. But like I said, more often than not, if you begin to explore and take into account some of these things, how can you pull the great things of all of these activities into your life, right? This is an expansive design process. So the process that we're going to go through is, one, you can develop different occupations, right? And some of you have done that, right? Some of you with your three plans have developed three radically different occupations. Some of you are looking at differences between a particular occupation. What kind of engineering am I going to go into? What kind of law am I going to go into? One of the things that I need you to consider, and I'm going to ask you to consider here in the first workshop of the day, is that you can have similar jobs, but the job itself, the occupation itself, is only one part of what you're doing. And if we think to our work view and our life view, those things I asked you, how do they go together? Right? How does what you think and how do you view work, the purpose of work, go to how you view life, the purpose of life, and what's important to you? So you can look at all of these things like the role in the occupation, but you can also look at it where it is. Like Nick wants to be a nurse in Boston, which would be a different situation altogether than if he were a nurse in Ithaca, New York, right? The social experience that you want to have, right? Ali, do you want to be a lawyer and just do law all the time, or wouldn't it be awesome to coach soccer while you were doing that, to find a situation where you could do it? What is your social place? What kind of impact and meaning are you having? Everybody in their life view says they want to make a difference or make an impact. This is an opportunity to start to create how that happens, right? And so what I'm going to ask you to do is start to create a different social situation with each of your plans that helps make them a little bit different, okay? So our first workshop today is going to be independent to start. I would like you to put up a graph, right? And you can just do a bar graph just like this. You don't have to put the titles on it. But I would like you to try to determine right now, what is the level of difference between your three plans? All right, do you think they're radically different? Are they kind of the same, but you're kind of thinking of two different things that'll be kind of the same path? Then I would like you to go through and I would like you to sketch out some changes in the situation. You may not have thought of those, right? You may not have thought about the differences between being a lawyer and an accountant and what that can mean for you socially or in your stock, right? So I'm going to ask you to think about that now for the first time. This is the number 8 about in the Odyssey plan. So I'd like you to consider these things, and I'd like you to start to differentiate your plans to make them different. So we want them to go from here or wherever they are right now. They may be a little bit different, right? And let's see if we can spread them out. We want them to be complementary. We want to address complementarity with your ideas. Okay? So I'm going to give you 4 or 5 minutes to address this. So remember, what I want you to do first, graph your plans right now, determine how similar you think they are, and then I want you to start adding detail to differentiate them further. And then you're going to share your plans and some changes that have happened. Okay? Should I leave this up? Okay. I'll give you a few minutes. Evan, how you doing on time? You good? Sydney, how are you on time? Okay, let's get back together. I would like somebody to go ahead and show their plan. Actually, let's do this. Tell us how similar you thought your plans were. If you want to hold up your graph, you can do that. And then what changes have you made to separate them? Who can start? Ali, you want to lead off for us?
Me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do you want to see my graph?
That'd be great.
Okay, so this is my graph. They're fairly similar in that they kind of like help others. So what I did is switch up. Instead of a soccer coach, I switched over to like fashion design. And then I narrowed down lawyer to criminal defense.
I like that. So you got more, you created more of a difference by increasing the specificity, right? So you kind of decrease the size of a concentric circle or your umbrella, and those pulled them apart a little bit. Okay. And then I think your big change was you went from coaching to maybe a guilty pleasure or something that you really kind of would acknowledge or pursue if money or prestige weren't an option. I would say though, that if you were really good at any of those three things, your money and prestige thing would probably make you the most money and get you the most prestige. Just saying. Okay, good. Who else can share? Carson, what do you got for us?
Okay, so I had engineering business, which is undecided, still undecided, and then drone videography. So I said that I felt like oh yeah, you want to see my graph? I don't really know how, it doesn't really make sense. I don't really know how to do it. But I said that engineering and business were more similar than engineering and drone videography because I'd be in school a lot of my life trying to figure out like my major and stuff like that. So that's how I connected them more. It was more about how long it would take me to get into either of those fields, so the time it would take to like do that kind of stuff. But drones, I could just hop right into it and just do it. But I also said that engineering and drone videography were similar in like the hands-on building and stuff like that. So I think I would change my number 3 to make it more different to probably like a coach for lacrosse.
Sorry, there's stuff going on outside. So your 3 would be engineering. What was your second one?
It's business, but undecided. I have no idea.
Engineering, business, and you got rid of videography and you made it coach.
Yep.
Okay. And were you talking about drones? Like
like aerial, like aerial videos. Yeah.
Okay. That's the kind of videography you were doing, or you were going to create them as an engineer?
Well, no, I would just be like just taking videos of things and stuff like that, and like traveling and just taking pictures and videos of different places around the world. But I do design drones and stuff like that already, so it kind of connects like the engineering mindset of like building and like constructing stuff like that. So I thought they were
so you're
too
not really
similar.
giving that up as much as you're doing something else altogether. Okay.
Right.
I see what you did there. Okay. Oliver, what do you got? Aaron, I'm coming to you next.
This is my graph for the level of differences. And
Thank you. Okay.
it was already like really different. My computer science degree and the difference was exploring the world. They were already like really different. But what was similar was like financing degree to learn about investing and stuff. So I changed it, instead of having a financing degree, to investing like in stocks and learning about it myself instead of going to school and taking all that.
Oh, so one of those Robinhood guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Aaron, what do you have?
So the 3 I had was teaching, designing and stuff, and I kind of saw the similar similarities of my designing and dancing with how much I am passionate with them. So I kind of put them, become an artist.
Oh, I think we're losing you.
And
Okay,
to
so
make
you
my,
talked about being passionate about them, and then you cut out a little bit.
oh, okay. So I said, being a designer and dancer, I'm very passionate. So I kind of add them together to make my second job to be more of a artist, while my third job would be a translator for
Oh.
Chinese.
Okay. So you brought in a whole new, okay, I like it. You see the idea there, right? So you going through the process, and you all use different techniques. Some people combined two of them and then created a third one altogether. Ale took some of them that were a little bit more broad and constricted them. Carson brought something that he realized he was kind of already doing, and he kind of wrapped that into the engineering, and he was able to bring in a third choice altogether. It, you know, it's almost a caricature of the class, right? You know that you will have more creativity with more choices. If you are actually introducing a third new radical choice, not only do you gain in creativity because it's radically different, complementarity, but because you have added another option, right? So it's a double win in terms of creating a creative environment and a creative choice for you to make. So I appreciate you kind of digging into that a little bit. And again, we've been concentrating on that thing that you do. This is going to be an iterative process even after you turn them in on Saturday night. So you're going to have a chance tonight and tomorrow coming into Thursday to start to think about these other two plans. What I want to do now is I want to get into your questions. And so let's take a step back, right? Because we've been taking a look at these pieces of the Odyssey plan. So it's an expansive thinking idea. You did that. You created your headlines. Your headlines are starting to change. So you need to know, you need to pay attention that if your headline or your topic changes, you need to go back in and help fill in some of the pieces to create that, right? Because we started bottom up to create the headline. Now, if you create a whole different headline, you need to fill in. And the way that we're going to do that is with the experiments and the questions, right? And then we'll get into maybe at the end today, the dashboard and then the timeline. And so last week we talked about framing your unknowns as how might we questions. And you went through a process to start to do that. And you've told us what your questions are, and you've worked on your questions. And we've talked about the importance of having a question that's not too narrow and it's not too wide, right? What we're going to do now, we'll take you back a step here, right? You have your idea, which is your Odyssey plan, one of your three Odyssey plans, we'll say, right? Your Odyssey plan is going to be set up as an experiment to explore an area that you want to pursue. There are some things that you don't know about that. Your unknowns, you've talked about those. And from your unknowns, you're going to ask questions that if you get the answers to those questions, you will create more certainty or make it more of a known. And a good question, first and foremost, a good question is answerable, right? And how do we answer it? With a number of ideas. If there's one answer, hey, should I make my kitchen cabinets blue or white? That's answerable, but there's not a lot of ideas, as opposed to, yeah, what are good current contemporary colors to have your kitchen cabinets? Now think about all the ideas that are there. What color are your walls? What kind of floor do you have? Some people are doing grays now instead of white, right? So the question is answerable. And if you answer the question, will it generate ideas, right? Most importantly, right, will you learn something if you ask the question and get the answers or the ideas, right? This is this whole idea about productive failures. right? You can do an experiment or you can try something, and if you fail, that's fine, but you want to make sure that if you fail, or even if you succeed, you learn something, right? And then in this case, you're going to be asking questions, thinking about this now. You're going to ask questions about these lives you're going to have to put together experiences that you can actually experience. So are the answers to your questions going to be actionable? Not all of them will be, but you want to make sure that if you're asking questions, that you're going to get this out of it. And what we're ultimately looking for are activities or experiences or interviews that you can partake in that will answer these questions for you. I want to check in here because I just went through a lot there, right? It's like, you know, Dr. Amani, we're talking about asking questions, and man, that's a lot. It be actionable, right? Answerable. Are we going to learn something? Are we good with that? Okay. All right. So our next workshop activity now is I'm going to ask you to go back to your how might we questions. Start with one of your plans. It could be that thing you do if that's the one that's been the same. And I'm going to have you ask your question, and I'm going to have you brainstorm answers to answer that question and then present them. So this is what I would like it to look like, right? So you may have had a question: what type of law would I like to practice? Or law or something else? Like what is the question that you're asking yourself? Which internship? Police department or FBI? Summer internship or study abroad or semester-long internship? What is the question that you're going to ask? And then I want you to identify, I want you to brainstorm here. Just doing this middle column next. What are possible ways that you could solve it? Taking a particular class, interviewing Alan Vandermark because you know he's a lawyer at a small firm in your town, meeting with Father Brown, right, about law classes and experiences, summer internship in a law firm. Attending the lacrosse club meetings would be helpful, but it would be better if you attended the law club meetings. Or interviewing a corporate lawyer, right? Maybe from Loyola, somebody you could interview through Loyola Connect. These are the experiences that you could partake in that would help you answer those questions. So I'm going to ask you to brainstorm your questions for one of your plans. And then the next thing that I want you to look at, when can you do that? You're not going to do an internship this year, your first years, right? Your internship's probably going to be in your third or fourth year, right? So that's 2023, 2024. I'd like you to kind of put a time frame as to when you might want to do this. If you want to take that upper level law class, that's probably something you're going to do junior year. It's not a class you're going to take as a first semester sophomore, right? So that doesn't make it a bad idea at all. But what you want to do is that you want to start to identify when it is you're going to do these things, because our next step is going to be putting those in your time. Okay, so I'm going to give you another 4 or 5 minutes here to go through and to put down the questions you've been working on for one of your Odyssey plans, write the question down, and then give yourself 40 seconds and just brainstorm. What are the types of things that I can do? If it's internship, great. If you know an internship someplace, right, Sydney, you've got a couple of good examples, right? You're looking at some tangible options for yourself. But I'd also like you to kind of expand that a little bit. What are some other things that you can look at as well? Okay. Okay, so I'll leave this up and I'll give you a few more minutes. Go. If you need help, you can also raise your hand, and we can jump into a breakout room too. I forgot to offer that the last time. Okay, another minute. Okay, let's get back together. Addie, which of your plans did you decide to work on for this?
I worked on the FBI one.
Okay. And what were some questions that you want to answer?
Where I'd want to go in forensics specifically.
Location-wise or discipline?
More like discipline.
Okay. And so state your question. What is your question?
I actually just wrote where I'd want to go in forensics because I knew what I meant.
Okay. What are some things that you bring? Could you flip on? What are some things that you brainstormed as options to explore that?
Well, I wrote getting in touch with Dr. Rivers.
Okay.
And getting involved, or well, really looking for clubs that involve forensics on
Okay.
campus.
Beautiful.
Exploring classes that go along with the major.
Okay. Good.
Oh, and interviewing Agent Anderson, which is my CSI teacher, who's a CSI agent.
Okay. So is that your list?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I like your list. One of the things that I would ask you to do as you're expanding this is, I would agree, there are classes that you can take. There are more classes that are available to forensic students than you will ever take. That's the whole point. And one of the great things about the way Dr. Rivers has set that major up is because you can explore a number of different things. And there's also the Loyola piece where it's based in the humanities, because we all think that that's important, right? So what I would ask you to do is take a look at what classes do you think are attractive to you or that would help you make your decision, and you can fill out your ideas. Then the next step would be, when can you go talk to Dr. Rivers about this?
Well, first probably email and see when he's available.
This semester though. I mean, it's something you could do immediately, right? Okay. Yeah. And when would you take like a 300 level class in forensics? When would that happen?
Probably sophomore, junior year.
Okay. So as you start to think about mapping out this process, you would be pulling these things out, and the next step that we're going to take is putting them into those different columns for the years. And as you do that, you might determine, if you pick out this particular class that you want, maybe it has a prereq, right? And so now we can kind of walk that back and say, okay, what experience do I need to have to be able to get into that prereq? Or some of the clubs may require, I'm making this up, some of the clubs may require that you have so many credits. Like we'll take juniors that are forensic science majors that are involved in this club, right? So you can start to play that out. Okay, thank you for that. Caroline, what'd you come up with?
My question was, what type of marketing do I want to go into?
Okay.
And then I said I could take like different marketing classes and talk to someone who has a degree in marketing, or like
Okay.
someone who like is getting it right now who goes to Loyola. I can join clubs related to it. Maybe look for an internship eventually during the summer.
Okay.
And yeah, that's pretty much all I wrote.
So in all of those options, I think those are all reasonable things that you would do to explore which area of marketing that you want to go into. My challenge to you is to figure out how might I determine what clubs are available to students interested in marketing, right? There's some answers to that question, and you could come up with a list so that you now know where they are and what they are, right? Or could I identify, are there mentors or are there people in the Sellinger advisory board that are marketing that would talk to me about, right? There are folks that would be happy to do that. And then the other piece would be, are there young alums from Sellinger that I could connect with on Loyola Connect to be able to answer those same questions at all that would, be not that far away from sharing your experience. So you've got general pieces there, and I think they're all good. The next step is going to be, how do you identify specifically what it is that you're going to do and when? Okay, with those? Does anybody have one that they want to share before I get us into the next piece here? So the next step is going to be, so you have all these experiences and you have the time frame, and you can't cheat that part. Like, you got to come up, you've got to identify some specific experiences with particular people. And then the next step is going to be looking at your time frame here, right? So this is stuff that can happen right now. This is the rest of the year, next year, 23, and then the end point being the summer or the fall when you graduate. Putting a 1 to 3 word description of your ideas into the appropriate section of the timeline, right? That's the next part. So taking all of your ideas, and those of you that I've asked to be more specific, or those of you that recognize now that I've asked that I'm going to ask you to be more specific, how do you start to put together this timeline, right? So you can start to get this, right? So you can start to see a progression of what's going on. Some of you will be exploring things in your next 1.5 to 2 years so that you have some clarity on a major or a minor or a grad school that you're going to start pursuing. And then there's like class prep and you need to take an entrance exam like the LSATs or the MCATs or something along GREs and moving in. So what I'm going to ask you to do next, and leading in to next class, is to rework your Odyssey plans based on the differences that you created today in class. And I think those of you that stated them, and probably everybody else, was able to very clearly state what your 3 plans are now. I want you to finish that thing that you do Odyssey plan or template, right? So you can use one of 2 documents. You can use the worksheet, which is the great big sheets on 1 piece of paper. Or if you want to use the template, that's 3 of the worksheets on the same piece of paper. I don't care which one you use. And when you turn them in this weekend, I don't care which one you use as long as they're complete. But I'd like there to be a headline, your unknowns and questions. Go through and take a shot at the dashboard. Start to identify the role, the place, the experience, what kind of impact or meaning that you're going to have once you've attained that role as an accountant, a lawyer, an FBI agent, coach. And then start to embed your ideas into that timeline. And I'd like you to show up with that thing that you do done to that point, done. Don't worry if you don't have great illustrations yet, we'll get to that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the dashboard on Thursday, right? What I would like you to do for plans 2 and 3 is I would like you to identify your questions and go through that brainstorming exercise that we just did. So I'd like you to start to brainstorm 1, get yourself a couple, 3, 4 questions, and then brainstorm questions for each of your 2nd and 3rd plans that you will then begin to put in your timeline later in the week. Okay. So be prepared to present that thing you do worksheet in class on Thursday. And I would like you to come to the table with 1 question for clarification about this exercise, about Odyssey plans, what you're doing, the process. I'd like you to do that up front and be prepared to ask that question. And one area for feedback that you would like when you present your Odyssey plan to us. Okay. Any questions on that before I turn you loose? Helpful today? I mean, that was a lot of work on your part. So hopefully it's kind of getting you through the process. And like I said, if you have a really good idea of how to do that first one, I'm hoping that on your own over the next day or two, you can get 3 of them rolling so that you can turn these in on Saturday night. Okay, so the further along you are for Thursday, the more feedback you'll get for Saturday. All right. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Dr.
it.
Amani.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a quick question about 2 things. One being our most recent assignment, the challenge choices and outcome assignment. I was wondering like why I got points taken off for the outcome section. Like, is there something that I missed that I like should have said? Because I thought I answered it, but I guess not.
I'll go back and look. What did I tell you?
You just left. You said not set, and the additional comment or feedback was proud from parents, and you as compelling hard work is a tailor-made connection to your values later.
There's a very reasonable explanation for that, Isabel. Does it say not set or does it say not completed?
It says not set.
I just didn't grade it.
Oh, okay.
You didn't do
I'm
anything
sorry.
wrong. Right.
Oh, okay.
So you see, it's like not set, complete, partially complete, not complete. If I thought you got a 0, I would have given you not complete. I just forwarded it and it didn't record my response is all. That's it.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
That's it.
And
That's-
my other question was, oh, sorry, what did you say?
No, that's okay. I'm done.
Oh, sorry. My other question was about my overall grade. I don't know if you got my email, and that's totally fine.
You know how many points you have, right?
Yes.
How many points do you have?
And let me pull that up.
Well, at that time,
now,
how many points did you have?
at
Because
the
before
at the time, I had a 27 out of 28.
Okay, so what is that?
I think that's an A.
It is an A.
Okay. Well, I was just confused because on the midterm grade, like the total.
The midterm
grade,
grades don't matter. I mean, I know they
Oh.
matter. Don't get me wrong, they matter. But by the time we sorted that out, they were closed. So you know the points that you got, you're fine. All that matters is your final grade.
Okay, I
That's
was
all
just
that
making
matters.
sure.
Right?
I was just
They're
a
not
little
recorded,
stressed.
they're not on a transcript, they don't get sent, I mean, nothing, right? So you know the points that you have.
Okay.
The challenge to you as your advisor, and this is my second old guy statement of the day, you get a bonus for staying late, right? My question to you is a feedback question, right? What does it mean that it says you have a B+ when you know you have A numbers? What does that mean to you?
I don't know. I just feel like personally, I liked. Well, no,
So
I
what's
don't
the
know.
difference?
Sorry.
Right? What's more important? I'm totally asking that question. And I will be honest with you. I used to drive my colleagues nuts, but when I used to run admissions at the physical therapy program at the University of Maryland, right? So it's a doctoral program. And the question that I would ask, this was 15 years before I thought I was going to be a design thinker. How do you know how you're doing and what feedback do you rely on if it doesn't come from grades or your instructor? That can be a rhetorical question because you're not trying to get into the physical therapy program at the University of Maryland.
Yeah.
So you know very clearly that your professor knows that you have an A. You know because you're awesome at math that 27 out of 28 is about 94%. All right, so I don't want to diminish the fact that it says B+ probably still in your thing.
Yeah.
But Isabel, you have an A.
Okay. Thanks. Now that I have that clarified, I.
All right, so just understand that that's what's important. And it was a
Okay.
totally, it's an accounting thing. The other piece though, I don't want you to feel bad. So now that you know how that's done, not set is I didn't enter a grade, and so that was just an oversight. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more. So
Okay.
I can change that right now.
Okay, thank you so
So I
much.
don't feel bad about bringing that up.
Yeah, no, I
It's not
understand.
like, you know the difference. If it said not completed, what do you mean I completed that? You gave me good feedback. What are you doing?
Yeah,
Right? Okay. Okay,
thank you. I appreciate it.
you're welcome. I'll see you. Hey, let me ask you a question. What do your parents do?
My mom, she works at DWP, Department of Water and Power.
Okay.
I think she's like a financial analyst, and my dad's
Okay.
retired. He used to work at Warner Brothers, but
Oh, really? What did you do for them?
Yeah. he worked with like the Canada business on like marketing, I think, something like that.
Very good. Okay. We were asking in our other class that you interviewed with.
Oh,
I was
okay.
curious as to what somebody asked Kristen what your parents did. We didn't know, so I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.